Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Bulletproof Selling. My name is Sean Rhodes, the Chief Sales Sergeant here at Bulletproof Selling, and author of the book Bulletproof Selling, a guide for systemizing sales on the battlefield of business. Here at Bulletproof Selling, we believe that hope is not a sales strategy. It didn't work on the battlefield of combat, it doesn't work in the battlefield of business. So, in the work that I get to do with salespeople all over the world, every single piece of it is targeted to one goal, and that is to remove a little bit more hope from how salespeople sell. So, from day one here on Bulletproof Selling, we've been getting together with sales leaders, sales experts, Hall of Fame speakers, best selling authors, and building sales systems, things that you can use no matter the size of your goals or the size of your team to remove hope from how you or your salespeople sell. And our commitment here is every one of these episodes is going to generate a sales system that you can take and train your team in. So it's not just a podcast episode or a video, a live stream where we're just having a good conversation with a sales leader, although that inevitably happens. It's really to give you a training tool, a resource that you can take onto the battlefield of business and make sure that you are able to sell more, but more importantly, and probably most importantly, to serve more. So in my time in the Marine Corps, I was able to go all over the world. And if you're not aware yet, the Marines are a department of the Navy, which means a lot of the assets and the help that we get is from our brothers and sisters in the Navy. But you'd think like, okay, Sean, you're on a battlefield, you're hundreds of miles inland, in the middle of a desert. How is the Navy going to help you? Well, there are two big ways that the Navy helps the Marines, and this does tie into sales. All right, so stick with me here. Two big ways. First, all of our medics are Navy personnel. We call them corpsmen. And if you're a corpsman out there, then it means you are very used to Marines doing very silly things, and you get to be the ones to patch them up because that's what Marines do. But the second big way that Navy people help us out is engineers, Seabees. All right, so every time we need a structure built, whether it is a barricade to keep us from getting shot or whether it's a building like a chow hall or a chapel, hey, Navy personnel are there. And I'm really excited about today's guest because that's exactly what this gentleman did in the Navy, built structure. And I say build structure. Here's the tie-in in sales. I know you've been waiting for it. You're like, Sean, that's great, man. Military story. I'm in sales. I got a short amount of time to learn something that's going to help me drive more deals. This person I'm bringing on today understands the power of structure in the physical form and the power of structure in the sales world. Michael Lange, who's going to be our guest today, VP of Sales and Operations for Ferrera Logistics and Transport, he's had to build his existing sales team from scratch. Hire the people, recruit them, train them, make sure that they are good to go on their structure and process. And we're going to have a good conversation today about the value of structure and process in a small setting sales team where these folks have to pivot on a dime. They have to be nimble. They have to make sure that they're leveraging every asset available to them as they stand up and grow a sales pipeline. So without further ado, my pleasure to welcome on the show, Michael Lange. Michael, sir, welcome to Bulletproof Selling.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
So, talk to us, Michael, a little bit about your background in the Navy, some of the cool stuff you got to do as a Seabee, which we have a lot of respect for as Marines, because without you guys, we'd just be sleeping under the open air and, getting dust and everything else blown on us all the time. But then standing up a sales team, I mean, that's something that if I talk to any sales leader and I say, I need you to stand a team up from scratch, immediately they get like, pale in the face. Lightheadedness comes on because it's a lot of work, man. It's tough to recruit a sales team from scratch. So walk us through your history, a little bit of your time in the Navy, and how you leverage that into a position in sales.
I was came in 2009. Got out in 2014. I did 5 years. In that 5 years, I did a stint to Afghanistan where we did tactical infrastructure for Marines and Army, building combat outposts from scratch, pretty much. Came back and then went to Djibouti, Africa, kind of during that time, 2011. We built some runways and did some repairs and some more or less of the water wells and stuff like that. And came back, did a little stint to Okinawa, Japan, and that's honestly where I found this what I do now. In Japan and Okinawa, we drive these our big trucks and everything else. Where over there, the roads are kind of small,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a huge logistical aspect over there where you can only run project cargo at night. So from about midnight to 4 a.m., we had this window where we could kind of move all of our equipment. We were supporting 11 projects around Okinawa, Japan. and to get with the Japanese government and everybody else, and um, kind of just learn and get there and get all the projects. And I mean, to me, that was an awesome thing to do. That's where I kind of learned, what I wanted to do in life, from that last deployment. So I got out, and I think it took me around 11 jobs to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And that brings me to, my next point as to where I am now. I think a year and a half ago, I got headhunted by a recruiter off of LinkedIn, actually, and he said, "Hey, man, I got this guy, and he's looking to build a entire freight brokerage." And at the time, I was working for another company running. No, I wasn't running a freight brokerage. I was doing more of account management with a couple of customers and kind of building my relationships and kind of building trust in the customers that I have now. And I wasn't really sure, I was kind of starting from the ground up, and it wasn't something that I was really enthused about, but it's definitely something that I was ready to take on, and big challenge. And uh, so I went to the interview and knocked it out of the water, and they offered me a job. And he's like, "Hey, man, this is yours. Start from the ground up, and we're gonna build." And that was May of last year. And since then, we've hired 5 sales guys. We got 7 dispatchers, a couple accountants, and just kind of took off. I think last year we were started slow, and it was mostly my sales, as I was the only sales guy,
Mhm.
and knocked out a couple of mil. And then this year we're doing really good, really really good. I think right around $10 to $12 million in sales this year with the sales team that we have.
Well, I think any individual knocking out a couple $1 million in sales in their first year, like that is a executive's dream right there. So I'm curious because a lot of people get out of the military, and they tell me, and I hear a lot of civilians say, well, the military doesn't really prepare you a lot for the world of business or being, employed as a civilian. What did you learn in the military that you've been able to leverage to do that well in that short amount of time?
I think mostly, man, it just goes back to, I mean, what we did and what we were doing. And I mean, I kind of, even overseas, you have, these military contractors, and you have everybody else, and you're kind of just talking to everybody else and kind of feeling everybody out, and kind of like, well, hey, what do you do, or what's going on over here, like these guys came into Afghanistan with their big water well machines, and I think the private contractors out there, everywhere I went, really, there was private contractors, and kind of just feeling them out and saying, talking to them and figuring everything out. And then taking that with your military background and everything else. I mean, everybody enjoys hiring veterans because they know we're going to work hard, we're going to do the job, we're going to, get things done. And I mean, there's no really, I'd say, height to where we can go and where we can take it. So I think that was a huge benefit to us.
And for you, especially, I mean, going into Afghanistan, having to deal with both civilians, you got the local population, you have to be a master coordinator of resources and assets. So, no surprise why you're so successful now. You had to learn how to do it in the military, and nobody's shooting at you now. So that's the plus,
Yeah.
right? You're not getting rocketed, you're not getting mortared. It's a pretty safe environment. You just got to worry about coordinating with resources and people. So, as you build your sales team up now, you're taking in folks that some of them have a little experience in sales, some of them have a lot of experience in logistics, but you're still having to train that team up and make sure that everybody's operating from the same sheet of music. So, where do you see salespeople relying on hope in your industry? Folks that are selling to these, I guess they're large companies, right? They need freight, they need logistics, they need transport, and your folks have to be the people on the ground to convince them, hey, you need to do business with us. So, where do you see salespeople relying on hope as they begin to build out their sales pipeline?
I think as we go through, we kind of have monthly meetings and weekly meetings, and we kind of, hey, what do you got going on this week? What are you doing? What's going on? I see a lot of guys. Well, I think this is going to go on, or, I think this is going to happen, or I think I got this person on lock, or I think, we got this. And like you said, it really falls more back into hope. I'm hoping that this works out. I'm hoping that I get this job. I'm hoping that I get this customer. And, it's not something that plays out really well in our cards. And, that's what we're trying to fix and overcome.
Awesome. So the concept of I think as a sales leader, you immediately hear that translated as I hope. And I agree
Yeah,
with you there,
exactly.
because if you can't show me the hard metrics, the data, then hey, it probably doesn't exist as a deal. So as a new salesperson, and I'm working for you on your team, and I need to get out there and actually develop pipeline that's based on more than I think. Where do you see the best salespeople on your team, or when you had to stand up your own pipeline as a brand new salesperson in this industry? Where did you start? Was it picking up the phone book? Was it looking on LinkedIn? Was it cold calling? Was it looking at your network? Where do you recommend your salespeople really take their first priority for building pipeline?
Yeah, well, I will say this: freight brokerage and transportation is, I would say it's probably top 10 in selling. There's 10,000 brokerages throughout the United States. There's huge competition. I think one of the I think one of the top brokerages in the United States is running around $400 million in cargo a year,
Wow.
which is huge. I mean, I'd love to get that big, but it's a super competitive market. Everybody's looking for bottom dollar. Everybody's looking to compete. As I said earlier, when I got out, I worked 11 jobs just trying to figure out what I wanted to do in life. I went dirt operating, and I went to mega moving, and I did crane and rigging. And I always left on a good note. Kind of something the military also taught us, to, always keep relationships and stuff like that. So I kind of developed a pipeline of network sales, kind of just relying on, a personal approach to finding qualified leads and referrals and everything else. So I kind of went back to the companies that I built a relationship with, and um, kind of personal gain, and said, hey, man, we worked great together. Can you give me a shot at this? And I think that was a huge factor for me when I was building my sales pipeline and sales goals and everything else. Um, and after that took off, I hired a guy in February, and he had a little different background than me. He was more into like steel and pipe and stuff like that. And we kind of went over the same thing. I was like, hey, man, you worked for these companies for so long, and you did this, and let's attack those guys, do a great job. And then when somebody else calls in, I'm like, hey, who do you use for freight? Oh, I use Ferrera. Okay, cool, man. Can you give me their number? And that's kind of been our sales goal, and that's kind of been, where we're at. And for us, it's worked out really good.
And so you're saying then that as I enter a new sales team, and you're telling me as my new boss, hey, leverage your personal network. Just because I don't have a background in logistics doesn't mean I don't have a personal network of potential clients for logistics, because everybody needs stuff moved. If I'm part of a computer chip, redistributor, hey, everybody needs computer chips when you get far enough up the supply chain, right? When people have to make electronics. So I love the idea of leveraging a personal network, even if you don't have a background in the thing that you're selling today. That's a big limiter for a lot of salespeople. They think, well, listen, Michael, I don't have 30 years in logistics. I probably don't have a personal network. And you as a leader, you're like, no, 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 you do. If you've been employed by somebody that moves material, you have a connection to a logistical buyer somewhere in that supply chain. So let's build a system around this for any salesperson, whether they're new or they just need to refresh their pipeline. Because just because I'm not brand new on a sales team, I've been here 4 or 5 years, it doesn't mean that there are probably some pieces of gold or diamonds, if you will, hidden in my personal network that could be great prospects. So when we were on the battlefield, Michael, Afghanistan or Iraq, every system that we built removed hope a little bit more from our operations. So I want to make sure that we're doing that for our salespeople today and for all the salespeople listening. So in the military, acronym for everything, right? You could go to KP to get your chow, to eat your MRE, to make sure you're going to your OP. There's an acronym for everything. So here on Bulletproof Selling, we use this acronym TRIM when we build new sales systems because, hey, we're trimming hope away from sales strategy with every new system. So the T in TRIM stands for the trigger. If I'm a salesperson, I could be brand new, I could be established on a team, but I want to begin mining my personal network for better prospects so I can build a pipeline of personal relationships. Where do I trigger this system? Is it when I realize my pipeline is getting a little low? Is it when I realize I've got some people that I haven't called in a while? If you're talking to one of the salespeople on your team and they want to better leverage their personal network, where do they start? Where do they pull this system off the shelf? What is the triggering event that causes it to happen?
Uh, I think to trim down the hope, I think we kind of go over every week and
Mm.
talk about, between the five of us, we're very knowledgeable, and we have a very good system as to what we're doing. And you know, I think we kind of talk about, hey man, you're gonna go see this guy this week, yeah. Oh, and then one of my guys might say, hey, you know what, man, I got a good contact over there. Let me go ahead and send it over to you. I've kind of built a system where our guys kind of work as a team and kind of feed off each other, and kind of, I send out sales reports every week, and I make these guys compete. So they're always at it, always going at it, always trying to win. And I think that's where we kind of get together and kind of just say, hey, and they're not greedy or anything like that. So I mean, they're always trying to help each other, always trying to help the company grow. I built a team where we started the company brand new, obviously, and I I built a team where hey, you're all in. Like I'm hiring you, I'm putting my trust in you, I'm teaching you, like help me grow, help me help you. And I think we try to take that hope out by just helping each other out and saying, hey man, that's probably not a good lead. They're using these people. They've been using them for 15 years. It's probably going to be a waste of time. Let's go ahead and attack this guy. Who might have a little bit more leverage, who might have a little bit more, you know, able to help us out. I think that's a little bit of as where we're at.
So I love the idea of doing this on a weekly basis. A lot of salespeople, maybe they'll take the time every quarter or every year to look at how they're going to refresh their pipeline. But you're saying, hey, every week, take a look at all the meetings you have coming up, all of the people that you already got an appointment with, or all the geographies that you're planning on driving out to and visiting, and ask, hey, who do I know in that area? But before you then get in your car and go driving to meet those people, QC that with your team. Say, hey, team, I'm planning on meeting with these folks. Any ideas, whether they're buyers or not, whether they're good buyers, whether they're decision makers, or maybe I'm going to meet with somebody that may not have the job title of a buyer in my industry. But if I QC this with my team, I could ask the question, I'm going to meet with a general manager. If I'm meeting with that person, what are the questions I should ask to get in touch with the person that purchases what it is that we sell? Because that general manager who you've already got an appointment with could be a gold mine of network referrals for you for the product or service that you're offering. So great idea to do it on a weekly basis. And I want to move into the R in trim, which is making this a repeatable process. So if I want to take a look at my network, Michael, and ask myself, all right, what are the 4 or 5 steps that I want to practice every single time that I've got somebody I think might be a person in my network that could refer me out? What are those 4 or 5 steps that you would ask your salespeople to go through?
As far as repeatable business,
As far as finding people in their network that could be either potential buyers or could refer them to potential buyers.
uh, I think we use the repeatable process as kind of uh, somewhat as we gain the business. Let's say my sales guy grabbed a customer
Mm-hmm.
and they've been doing really good. So this is a new customer. He's picking up at new places, new locations, new everything. So I think what I like my sales guys to do is go back and see where they're shipping from. And say, hey man, they're moving a lot of freight from here to here. So let's go talk to these people. Maybe let's see what they're doing, see what's going on there, and then that's kind of worked out for us. And then say, hey man, I see you're moving a lot for so and so from out of there. Do you have a contact over there? And then from there, kind of work that repeatable business with them while also trying to build a pipeline through other companies while moving their stuff.
So I've got existing customers as a potential source, which is great. What if I'm looking at just the people that I happen to know from my past jobs, as you mentioned that you did? I worked for 11 jobs. I maintained those relationships, didn't burn any bridges. If I'm already going to my existing customers and I want to begin mining the network of people I've worked for in the past, what would you recommend I do?
Just reaching out. I mean,
Mm,
is what I've done. I mean, setting up meetings and kind of just going out and just get. I don't. I'm not a fan of the cold calling or um, kind of. It's just not me. I like to be face to face. I feel like I actually a month ago, I would say one of my sales guy walked into the office, and I don't think he had a fighting chance. And he called me, and he was like, "Hey, man, I got him. They sent me a couple quotes." And I was like, "Really?" He was like, "Yeah." And he said, "You know what the difference was?" I said, "No." He said, "Face to face, man." He said, "So many people call and so many people, email or I walked in there face to face and talked to him and said, hey, let's give it a shot." And he said he sat down there, had a 10, 15-minute meeting, walked out and got a couple quotes, got a customer set up. And I was like, wow, I was pretty impressed.
I love it. So I've got my past, or excuse me, my current clients. I've got the past people that I've worked for. Is there anybody else in the community that I could be tapping into? I'm just looking for one more idea from you on how I could leverage my personal network. Could it be people that I'm going to church with or sports teams? Who else in my network would be, probably a good target that I could just walk through to say, hey, do you know anybody that might be involved in this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my son plays select baseball, so we're always traveling. Um, I know one of my other sales guys. I think he does motorcycle rallies and stuff like that. And I think getting out. I mean, I think that's our biggest asset is getting out and going face to face with these guys and meeting other guys in your personal network and friends that you don't even know, man, like that you just maybe see on a weekend or something like that, or you see at a networking event. I know we are very involved with ABC, the Associated Builders Contractors.
Hmm.
We try to get involved with the community and try to really network that. And LinkedIn is a great one, off of our network. Um, so I think that's about where we're at.
And so it's not just looking at first degree connections. So it may not be the dad on my kid's soccer team that could be the buyer, but the dad works in a company that has a logistics purchaser. And that's the key right there. So it's just
Exactly.
reminding everybody that and saying, how can I provide value and make sure that you can connect me to the people that I can do business with, that I can provide that value to as well. If I've got making this triggerable, I just invented a word on bulletproof selling, so I know when to launch it. I've got some repeatable steps here to mine both current customers, past employers, and my community. This is something I do each week to ask, who is the next person that I'm going to reach out to and provide value to, not wait until my pipeline runs dry. But now I'm in the excuse me, the I'm messing this up, the I in trim, which is making this an improvable process. So when we first went into Afghanistan in 2003, when we first had CBs on the ground and we needed to stand up a combat outpost, we probably did that differently than we did in 2009 and 2010 because we'd learned some things along the way. Do it in this order, put up some coverage so we're not getting targeted by snipers, all the cool stuff that you were able to benefit from. I want to improve this system as well, though. So what do I need to do after I've used it for a quarter? I'm reaching out to my current customers, my past employers, the people in my community. What do I want to do to make sure that I'm getting better at doing this? It may be the frequency that I'm doing it at, the questions that I'm asking, how I'm maintaining the database of people so that I don't lose track of them, because this could quickly become 150, 200 people that I'm now having my personal network that I'm reaching out to. How would you want your salespeople to improve the way that they're mining their personal network to build pipeline?
Uh, on the improvement side, I think it goes back to hope. But
Mm,
um, yeah, on the improvement side, I think it's just reaching out and really getting into these guys is you know I wouldn't say face, but getting into their I wouldn't not hounding them as much, but kind of, hey, every other week or so, something like that. Say, hey, man, what's going on? I know we talked a couple weeks ago. Um, is anything popped up? Is there something I can quote? Is there something I can do? I think it's really just getting back and getting back in touch with these people that we've already talked to, and or that we've already maybe seen that, hey, this guy could be a good potential client. And I oftentimes, even though I am the VP of sales and everything else, my sales guy will call me and be like, "Hey, Mike, I got a lunch scheduled for 12 o'clock, man, and I think it'd be really beneficial if you come." Hey, man, no problem, man. Yeah, I'll get out there and I'll go. And I think a couple of my sales guys have really built customer basis that way. Kind of, they picked up some customers. I think it's kind of that face and name kind of thing. Where you're talking to a sales guy versus a VP of sales and operations and everything else. And um, so I do go out and I'll say, hey, man, yeah, I'll go eat lunch with you, no problem. And that's kind of been the improvement on our end and helping our sales guys out.
I love that. It's amazing. So if I've got the trigger element, making it repeatable with a group of different people to mine for a personal pipeline, which is great. It's not just one category of people, multiple categories we've gone over. I got ways to improve it. Now I'm in the M in trim, which is making this thing measurable. So you think about measuring the effectiveness of this system. Do I want to measure closed deals? Do I want to measure the amount of new people I'm adding into my pipeline each week? Like, how do I know that I'm successfully building a personal pipeline in your industry?
We measure things mostly um, mostly by quotes. You know what I mean? If we can get quotes and we can feel like we have a chance to win, in my industry, that's a win. So if you can go talk to somebody and go out and talk and get in their face and get an email or something like that, and they send you a quote within a week. I mean, that's a real win for us. If we feel like we can put some numbers on paper and feel like we're competitive, and maybe call back a couple of days later and say, hey, man, where was I at on that quote? Was I anywhere close? Was I off? Or and sometimes they give you insight. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they award you the job right there, and you were really cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And but in our category, that's what we feel like is a win. That's our measurable win, is when we can start seeing quotes come in and emails come in and stuff like that.
And I'd be willing to bet then that something else to measure would be where the source of lead came from. So if I'm looking at closed business over the last quarter, let's say I closed 90 deals, which would be a great quarter for I think most of us, and I look and I see 80 of those came from this campaign across my personal network. Then I'd
Yes.
know, hey, that's a valuable source of leads for me. That's something I need to double down on. Or if I look at it and I say, well, half of them came from the inbound stuff we got from, the Google ads and marketing, and half of them came from my personal network. Well, now I can look at it and say, all right, well, now I know it's equal. Or if, 80% of my stuff's coming from inbound and only 20% is coming from my personal network, I can take a look at measuring it. Who in my personal network am I reaching out to? Are these the soccer moms that have no connection whatsoever? Or are they the folks that are still employed by a company and they have connections that are valuable in the business world? So lots of different ways to, I think, measure the source of leads as well for that. Well, this is a great end-to-end system on building pipeline from a personal network. So thanks for giving that back to the sales community, Michael. I know something that your team does a great job at, but now a lot of salespeople can benefit from. If we're anywhere near the world of logistics, or if our companies move product, I know that they could benefit from what you and your gentlemen do. So how do we get in touch with you? How do we begin following what you're after? How do I reach out and say, hey, man, I've got freight to move. Give me a quote. How do people get into your world?
We do have a LinkedIn. It's for logistics and transportation. And then also my email, michael@logistics.us, and then my cell phone number. But
Hey, we'll absolutely make sure that we're tagging you on that so people can find you on the show notes and on LinkedIn. Definitely get in touch with Michael, especially if you're moving something, especially if you want to support a veteran operated business, because he's the VP of Ops over there. So I know he would appreciate it. Well, for all of us here at Bulletproof Selling, if you're following us on YouTube, make sure you're hitting that like and subscribe button. If you're on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, anywhere that podcasts can be found, leave us a review. Let people know that sales and hope no longer have to go together. What works on the battlefield definitely works on the battlefield of business. Well, Michael, as a veteran, thanks for the time that you gave to us, man, so we could all live this great quality of life we have here in the States. And thanks for giving back to the sales community today with your time. Let's get out there, sir, and make selling bulletproof.
Thank you.